My biggest job in 1974 was to get David Niven as a speaker. I had a summer and winter place up in the mountains where Niven was. And the speakers committee said, Marshall, it's so easy for you. You're in the same village as David Niven. Now, needless to say, I did not know David Niven. He and I ran in different circles. But it's a long story which you're not going to put on this machine of getting David Niven, but he finally came in '76. Well, first we didn't have any women. And we had some members who thought it would be a cardinal sin to have women in the club. Until it finally dawned on them that the answer to the question of why not women, and the answer always was from those who didn't want women, oh, but they have their own club. There's an American Women's Club in Geneva. And the women who wanted to become members of the American International Club, they were business women. And the people who didn't want women forgot that women were in the business world, and they felt that it was only proper that they could be a member of the club. We had a speakers committee, which was always the major committee of the club. And it was a little bit easier in those days. Speakers were not paid, and it was easier to get them. They didn't ask for money, and they didn't get money. The most that they would get if they were out of town in Geneva, if it was a hassle to get to town, they got overnight. They got a hotel. And the fare to get here, airfare. I mean, we wouldn't fly somebody from the United States, but someplace in Europe we would. But you got Gorbachev, and you had Yasser Arafat, and you had other people who were prominent newsmakers in the world. And we had a lot of diplomats, because the U.S. Embassy in Bern and the U.S. Mission in Geneva helped us get speakers. Like Paul Volcker we had, who was Secretary of Treasury.
Hello, glad to be here today. My name is Pierre Infeld. I was the director of the American International Club for 30 years. Started in 1977, where I had a secretary who became, a couple of years after, my wife, and we kept on running the club together. Our mission was to make sure that the administration of the club was completely done, simplifying the president's job and organizing on the practical side all the events organized by the club, which means speakers' luncheons, whether they were held at the Hotel Intercontinental where we had our base and our office, or whether it was dancing events, or whether it was the election nights, which was organized every 4 years. And especially we were in charge of the big public 4th of July celebration in Geneva, which was attracting a crowd of about 20,000 to 25,000 for the biggest years. We were, of course, helped by lots of volunteers to organize those events. And most of them were members of the club, but some were volunteers outside the club as well. We faced over the 30 years, I would say, one major event, one major situation. When I came to the club, Patricia, who was the assistant who was there, used to say that she had 1,500 members under her thumb. At that time, the club was very strong in terms of members. So we saw that the decrease of members was one of the risks we were going on. So the membership committee was very active to try to recruit more members. We also were faced with financial situation because we needed more and more money. So we started to implement a corporate sponsorship program to try to find companies helping the finance of the club. Now the second or the third most important event was, at the time, it was only a men's club. Don't forget that in Geneva, the American Women's Club was existing, but it was not addressing the problem of professional women. And over the years, women became more and more involved in professional activity, and they needed a place to meet professional people. So the American International Club opened itself, not easily, immediately, to women becoming members. And in fact, we were there when the first woman became member of the board, Janet Wood, who at the end became president of the club as well. So I would say decrease of membership, finding sponsors, accepting women, that was the three most important things which happened over the 30 years. Oh, we have plenty of those. We had a great speaker and famous speaker like Michael Gorbachev, like Sheikh Yamani, and I can give you a little anecdote regarding my wife, Patricia, who was there for the events to cash money for people, but she was not really seeing the speakers, just saying hello maybe, but the speaker was passing by. And one day at the Hotel Intercontinental, she didn't realize she was approaching an Arab person, and she said, "Oh, what an interesting person. Who is he?" And the guy turned around and said, "I am Sheikh Yamani, madam." Of course, the concierge of the hotel were laughing, as you can imagine. And he was a guest speaker for us the day after.
My name is Roy Ryan. Been a member of the club for now probably close to 30 years. I've had the pleasure of being the president from 1997 to 1998, which was for me one of the highlights of my life here in Geneva. It was kind of an unforgettable experience of being with other educated and wonderful people. Doing the work of a club, I think, is very important. So I had a great board when I was the president, and we were, I think, able to continue the great tradition that we had on the board of cooperation, goodwill, and there was never an argument that I can remember in any of the meetings. We all were working hard to create a club that was providing a great experience to all of its members. We had a lot of people doing work to help us get there. We had an executive director, Pierre Imfeld, who was really exemplary, and who could carry out decisions of the board. But it was, again, one of the highlights of my time here in Geneva, my experience within the other club that's come. Well, I think there have been some changes that reflect the changes in the society as a whole. When the club was founded, now almost 70 years ago, the club was basically one of the only places to go for the kind of experience that it offered, which is a chance to associate with other Americans and people of international interest. And it was hugely successful, grew far beyond its beginnings. And I think when I was president, we had 1,400 members. We could fill a ballroom. We brought some good speakers in, and we brought many of them. But over the years, the role of these voluntary associations has changed. Our membership has decreased a bit, and we have greater difficulty of attracting kind of headline speakers. But I think the one thing that has continued is the spirit that was there from the beginning, which was a spirit of goodwill, a spirit of wanting to associate with other people in a cooperative way, and to make Geneva a better place to live. Not just for the Americans, but for all of our members, and reaching out to the greater community as a whole.
Hi, my name is Janet Voot, and I had the privilege of being the AIC president in 2003-2004. And in fact, at the time, I was the first, and still so far only, female president of the American International Club. I think I was on the AIC board, I'm not sure exactly, but I think about a decade. And so female members must have preceded that, so it had to be in the 1990s. But I think when you're the AIC president, you're the president of all the membership. So the female issue may have been, it was new, it was different, perhaps, but you were still part of a really great club, which now had great women as well as great men. I think my 2 years as president of the AIC were quite exciting and really fabulous. First, at the time, we were privileged to have Pierre and Patricia managing the office. So you really did not have to worry about the administration and the management of events. Second, the kind of speakers we could get at the time, Sergio Vieira de Mello, Tommy Thompson, Paul Pullman, were really exciting speakers, head of the Swiss National Bank. And at the time also we ran a huge 4th of July celebration. So the events that the AIC managed were big. And for me, it was a privilege to serve as the president of the AIC. And I learned a lot about managing a volunteer organization at the time. I think the AIC has stuck to its roots, being a member-oriented organization. I think the current times are more difficult than they were in 03-04, insofar as there aren't so many American multinationals sending their top leadership over from various locations in the States. And so therefore, I think it's important that it's the American International Club, and that AIC definition is even more important than it was in 03-04.
Being president of the AIC is like conducting an orchestra. Everyone is playing their different instruments, playing their parts, and you have to bring it all together into one beautiful concert. My feel-good moment was actually just a little thing. It was the last AIC golf tournament. I'm out on a beautiful day with Roy Ryan, Tom Dobis. I was exchanging golf jokes with Roy Ryan. He just looked at me and he just told me that he appreciated what a good job I've been doing as president, which coming from him made me feel real good. And then we ended up just having a great tournament. And I was so surprised we won. I threw the paper in the air and everybody laughed. And the smile on everyone's face. And I just looked around and I said, this is a nice moment. Well, the only advice I can give to future presidents is the more you give, the more you get back. So give as much as you can and enjoy it.
I'm Paige Holt. I am Vice President of the American International Club. I have been fulfilling that function for, I believe, 7 years now. I've been on the executive committee probably for about 10, and I've been involved with the AIC for probably close to 15 years. So I have seen the evolution of the club in a big way, from the heyday of the club up until now, where we've become a member-managed club. And I think what's really interesting today is that we are turning 70 in 2020. And we have a wealth of history and knowledge and anecdotes and presidents that are here with us to really remember what the club is all about. And I think that going forward, what's really important is for the club to build on this history, to translate this history to younger generations in order to fill the pipeline with new members, with new executives, with new leadership, to continue to fulfill the mission of the club, which is really to translate the American values of gumption, go-to, freedom, acceptance, diversity, all these values that belong to American society and the American way, basically, in the best way possible, to fulfill that today in Geneva. So the AIC for me has always been that attachment to not just the United States, America, but to the values of the American way, in the nicest possible way. I mean, you know, the freedom, entrepreneurship, gumption, all those great things that we think about when we think about fondly of the United States, because I've always worked here in the last 20 years. I've worked in Geneva in maybe Swiss companies or international companies that were not necessarily American. And so the AIC has always given me that link to the United States and that feeling and that system of values. And it's also allowed me to use my professional skills in a way to make the club better and improve the club and help the club grow.